You know, it's really not good for cars to sit for a long period of time. They were meant to run, and when they do that, things tend to start to go wrong. I had the Ranger running really well, and I think I've got two issues. I used it to go pick up some parts. I think I got two issues. One is I think it's got a fuel leak somewhere, and the other issue I have is while I was driving and went to stop, the brakes popped, which means I probably have a wheel cylinder or a brake line that has busted. So I had to move the truck out of the way. So it's sitting down here. So my plan is today is to move it up to the driveway and work on getting those things fixed. There were two indicators to me that I have a fuel leak. The first one is, and you'll hear it when I go to start it, you have to really pump it. It's like it's not getting enough gas. Eventually it does, which tells me there's probably a fuel leak somewhere, so it's having a hard time building pressure. So you can hear it when I go to start it. Usually it would just pop right off, but yeah, I think it's got a fuel leak. So the other indicator that I think I have a fuel leak is the last time I went to fill it up with gasoline, I started getting little gas drips. And that's just a little drip. But when I was filling it up, I mean, it was making quite the puddle. So, I mean, that's a really good indicator that you got a fuel leak, right? So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the bed of the truck off and look at the connection to the fuel tank, which I replaced. I probably didn't get a connection exactly right, and check that out first. And then we'll dig into what the brake issue is. Okay, now I got the, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the big bolts that hold the bed on. Actually, in this case for me, it was only 5 because one of them broke off the last time I took the bed off. So I may address that once I have the bed off. I need to disconnect the filler neck and unplug the lights behind the bumper. There's a connector there. And I'm not gonna actually take the bed off all the way because I don't need to get to the tank. And also because I'm here by myself. But I'm just gonna basically pick it up and slide it backwards to get to where the connector is for the gas tank. And I'm gonna try to do the brakes while I have the bed off because I think the issue might be in the back brake. And the reason why is because the emergency brake light's on, and that shouldn't be the case. So that's my best guess. And it might be easier to get to the back brake lines if I have to take them off if the bed's off. But if that's the case, I'm gonna take the bed off completely to do that. So right now I'm gonna disconnect the filler neck and then see if I can just slide this thing backwards. Okay, I have the bed off the truck, sitting over there. I jacked it up and took the wheels off and checked the rear brakes and they looked fine. I refilled the reservoir, which I know is empty because there's a brake line broken somewhere. And then this is what I got. So now I'm not so sure that it's not a fuel. I thought I had a fuel leak and a brake line leak, but I'm wondering now if it's just a brake line leak that was right here at the gas tank, because when I was filling up with gas, I swore it looked like it was just running straight through. But now I'm thinking that was just the brake line had cracked and just right before I pulled in the gas station. And what I thought, I mean, I didn't reach down and smell it, but what I thought was fuel was actually brake fluid. So I'm gonna take this brake line off. Basically what it is it's connected right here, and that's probably not gonna unscrew from there. It's gonna totally mess it up. And then that brake line goes right past there, and then about halfway up the frame, right under the door, is where it connects. And so I'm gonna see if I can undo it at both those spots and slide this out, and then see if I can go get some replacement brake line. I had to end up having to cut because they were too rusted to actually take apart. And I ended up buying a brake line flare kit, which I'll hopefully get into how to use that in this video. But when I was putting the tires back on to move the truck out of the way, one of the valve stems broke, so I ended up having to go and buy 2 new tires for the back, and I'll end up having to buy them for the front too. Those tires were pretty old. I think they were manufactured in 02, so they were pretty dry rotted and time to replace. But today I'm going to work on getting the brake lines apart. Well, my hope was that I could save the lines that go from this little split to the rear tires, and the nuts did come out, but of course they broke the line. So I think what's going to end up happening here is I'm going to end up replacing all the way back from the back tires all the way up to the front to the master cylinder, because while I'm in here I might as well replace this rubber line too. I mean, it might be fine, but I think I just go ahead and replace it. Okay, what I decided to do, since I already cut the lines, is just go ahead and replace the soft line. So I've got to get it off, and I've got a replacement part for that. I just went ahead and bought new wheel cylinders since the bleeder valves were so rusted they just broke off, at least on this side. They probably will on that side too, and I need to replace them anyway. And then I got to do all the brake lines. So I should at least be able to get from here to the wheels replaced, and then I'll focus on the brake line that goes down the frame. So it took me a minute or two to realize that this thing only goes in there a certain way, so if it doesn't fit, it won't slide through. You just got to rotate it around so that it slides through. And I actually used the old clip because I liked it better. The other one was too soft. So I'm going to bolt the other end down here, make sure it's clipped onto the emergency brake, and then I'll be ready to put the wheel cylinders in. All right. So for this side, I have a nice new wheel cylinder with bleeder valve, so I'll go ahead and put these in. I'll leave the caps and everything on them so that they don't get dirt in them. And then I'll put the wheel back together. Well, I may leave it open just because until I get the brake line actually ran. So, but this is going to be pretty straightforward. It's just going to be a matter of bolting this wheel cylinder in. I could have tried to drill out that bleeder valve and reuse the old brake cylinder, but the old wheel cylinder, but as old as they were pretty nasty looking. I just needed to replace them anyway, and they weren't that expensive. They're less than 20 bucks a piece. So all right, let me tighten those up and they should be good. So here's the old brake line, and I'm just kind of matching it up because one of the things that I'm realizing is, if you can see, I'm not sure if you can or not, but this bend is not going to work for the replacement rubber hose, the hose part, because it was at an angle. Let me show you. look at how the old brake line would have come in, this would have been here. You can see where it would have been coming in at a diagonal. And obviously it's short because it's been cut, but so now if you look, I've actually got to make it come in straight. So it may have a bend on the end of it, or it may just stay straight and have a slight bend to line it up. So I think what I'm going to do is, when I start to bend this brake line, is I'm going to start on this end. I'll leave myself plenty of line, make these bends, make this bend, and make this, and then just have it go straight. That's the plan anyway, but we'll see how it goes. You can see I've got the hard line put in on this side and have the wheel all put back together. I've taken this part, this wheel, and the drum brake apart, and I put the new wheel cylinder in. So what I'll do this time is I'll walk you through step by step how I made the lines for this side, just like I did the other side, using the new flare tool that I bought online, and it worked really great. So let me show you how it works. So I already cut a piece of hard brake line that I know is going to be long enough, and I've sanded off the ends to make sure they're good. And so on this flare tool, you can see, turn it right side up, it's 3/16 inch line, which is what I have, and I'm going to do the 45 degree. It also says that on the other side too. And so you start with basically it's the 0 mark, which is flat, and you put the line in. Make sure I've got it all lined up right. I'm going to let it stick out just a little bit, because this flat punch is going to basically push it to where it's supposed to line up. So pull this out. So you can see I'm going to tighten it just a little bit, but it's still enough to where it can slide. So it's holding it, but it's loose enough that it'll slide. So you have this little flat punch, and when you pull it, it slides it to the spot that it's supposed to be. Now once it's there, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down because I don't want it to move. And I'm going to do a flare, and so this is a 2-step process. So on the top up here, there's operation 1 for 3/16. So I put it there, and it's lined up, and once I pull, come around the other side of the camera, I back it off, turn it to operation 2 3/16. I pull it, that should be it. Loosen the die, flip it back, and what you have is a really nice double flare, which is what you want for brake lines. So now that I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and bend it so that it matches the best that I can the original brake line, and then I'll put a flare on the other end so that there's another connector, and then it should be ready to install. So I'm going to start, I know I need about another inch or so, and I think it gives you flexibility from a distance with this big bend, but So I need to do a 90 to start off. I'm gonna do it right here. So this little tool, which isn't hard to use, it's just, you just kind of have to play with it a little bit as far as the accuracy of where you're putting it. So what I've been doing is trying to go, if this was in there with it, where would this fall? And I need it to be about right there. This is a pretty wide bend. It's not like a 90. It is, but it's a pretty sweeping 90. So I'm gonna scooch it out a little bit. You see the line that matches up. We'll try to keep it in line with for you so you can see it. There's your 90. So turn it a little bit. So there it is. It's a little sharper than the original. That's okay. So now I need to do a 90 the other way. So I'm just gonna keep working it until I get it all basically the same for the most part as the original, and then I'll be ready to install it. Okay, after working, I'm not completely finished getting it. I'm gonna put it on the truck and see. All right, so you can see I've got it pretty close. It's not horrible. I'm gonna put it on the truck at this point and see where I need to bend it, since the joint that it goes into is square to the axle and not at a 45-degree angle like the original one was. So I'm gonna take it over and take a look, see where I need to bend it next. So obviously you want to leave yourself plenty of wiggle room on length, and that's basically where it's going to sit in. And so it's probably a little close than I would want it to be, but I think I've got to put a 90 like right here, and then leave myself enough space to flare this out. So yeah, so there's where it'll hook right there. So if I just put a 90 right here, I should be good. So I can always bend it out just a little bit. So let me get a marker and mark where I want to bend it. Okay, the line is in. The only thing that I would say is what I should have done is measured the length of it that I needed, flared the line, and then put the bend in it, because I put the bend in it first, and then I had to leave myself enough line to actually sit in the flare tool that it made this distance pretty long, but it's fine. It'll work for now. So I'm ready to put the wheel back together, and once I put the wheel back together, then I can work on the actual line that goes from that little Y up the frame rail that split to begin with. But once I do that, I'll have all new brake lines all the way back for the rear at least. So sometimes you gotta just spend some time thinking about it, and after thinking about it last night, it's really hard to reach underneath there to get a fitting loose that's so rusted shut that you gotta put, heat on it and wrench on it pretty hard. So I decided to disconnect the brake line from the main cylinder and pull it out from the front, and that got me to this where I could get this connection undone. So I have this undone. Now I'm going to feed this back in and reconnect it so that I can run the new brake line from that joint to this point. Okay, so I put the brake line in. It's right here. Let me show you. And man, almost did not have enough. So I installed it, I bled the brakes, everything seems to be holding. So right now, it's gonna be time to take it for a drive and see how it does. I'll go very, very easy, leave myself plenty of stopping space. I still have the front brakes, so that helps, but hopefully everything's gonna hold and this job will be done. So I'm just in my neighborhood. I'm gonna use the brakes right here on this straightaway and see how they do. Nice. So they work, definitely better than they did before. Try them again, up to about 25. They're working. Now, remember, these are not power brakes. They're about as basic as you can get, so, but they're working. Okay, so I buttoned everything back up again, put the bed on, put everything back together, took it for another drive, and the brakes worked wonderfully. So what I thought was a fuel leak turned out to be a blown brake line, which honestly, with the right tools and a little patience, really isn't that hard to repair. So that's gonna be it for this episode, and hopefully I'll check you out on the next one.